Have you ever wondered why certain dreams never leave you? Why some images, some symbols, some strange, surreal moments feel more real than reality itself? Why does the mind, and while the body sleeps, create entire worlds, scenes that feel so vivid, so emotional, sometimes terrifying, sometimes beautiful, and yet so mysterious? You might think a dream is just a random collection of thoughts, a chaotic movie your brain plays while you rest. But what if it's not? What if your dreams are not random at all? Carl Jung, one of the most important minds in modern psychology, believed that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. That every dream, every symbol, every strange encounter is not noise. It's a message, a direct transmission from the deepest layers of your psyche, because your conscious mind is limited. It filters, it hides, it edits what you can handle. But the unconscious doesn't care about comfort. It speaks in symbols, in metaphors, in stories. It tells you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. A truth about what you fear, a truth about what you've ignored, a truth about what your soul is desperately trying to heal, release, or become. It's not superstition. It's not fortune-telling. It's psychology. It's the mirror of the soul. And the reason why some dreams feel unforgettable, even decades later, is because they were never meant to be forgotten. They're pieces of you that the waking world tried to silence, but the unconscious refuses to let die. In this exploration, we are going to decode the meaning of your dreams. We'll understand why certain patterns repeat, why specific people show up, why you fly, fall, run, or encounter strange beings, places, and symbols. But more importantly, you'll discover what these dreams are trying to tell you about your own life, about your healing, about the parts of yourself you've been ignoring, because your dream is not just a story. It's a message from the part of you that never lies. If you've ever had a dream that repeats, you already know. It's not random. It's not noise. It's something deeper, something that refuses to be forgotten. You wake up, shake it off, try to convince yourself it was just a strange experience, but days, weeks, or even years later, it comes back. The same scene, the same feeling, the same symbol, as if your own mind is telling you, you're not done with this yet. Carl Jung understood this phenomenon better than almost anyone. To him, recurring dreams are psychic alarms. They are messages from the unconscious that have been ignored, suppressed, or left unresolved for so long that the psyche starts sending them over and over, louder each time. Your conscious mind might be skilled at avoiding discomfort. It might rationalize, dismiss, or distract itself from what's truly bothering you. But the unconscious doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about wholeness. It cares about integration. It cares about the parts of yourself you've buried, that now refuse to stay buried. And that's why the same dream repeats, not to punish you, not to haunt you, but to force you to look at something you've been running from. Maybe it's a decision you keep postponing, a truth about yourself that feels unbearable, a wound you've never allowed to heal. Or maybe it's a shadow part of you, a desire, a fear, a truth that the waking self refuses to admit. The symbols in the dream are not accidental. They are not arbitrary. The house, the falling, the being chased, the ocean, the stranger, every single element is the unconscious speaking, in its native language, a language of images, a language of symbols. Jung believed that the psyche is self-regulating. Just like the body sends pain signals when something is wrong, the psyche sends recurring dreams when a psychological imbalance threatens your well-being or your growth. It's a survival mechanism, not physical survival, but the survival of the authentic self. And the longer you ignore it, the more intense it becomes. First, it's a strange dream you can't explain. Then, it becomes more vivid, more emotionally charged, and eventually, if ignored long enough, it starts spilling into your waking life through anxiety, depression, self-sabotage, or patterns that keep repeating outside of sleep. Because what you refuse to confront in your dreams doesn't disappear. It simply waits for the next opportunity. This is why Jung viewed dreams as an essential part of the individuation process, the journey of becoming whole. A recurring dream isn't just a message, it's an invitation to explore the parts of yourself that are trapped in the dark. And here's what most people get wrong. They try to decode dreams like solving a math problem. One symbol means one thing. A house means this, water means that, falling means this. But the unconscious doesn't work that way. It's not mechanical, it's symbolic. And symbols don't point to just one thing. They point to entire layers of meaning. A house isn't just a house. It's the self, the psyche, the structure you live in emotionally, mentally, spiritually. If the house is crumbling, what part of your life is falling apart? If the house is too small, where are you suffocating? If the house has secret rooms, what parts of yourself have you locked away? If you're being chased, who or what is chasing you? Is it a person from your life? Or is it something within you? A shadow, a fear, an unresolved guilt, an unmet desire? The more you try to rationalize it, the more the message slips away. But the moment you feel into it, the moment you ask, what does this image make me feel? The message starts revealing itself, because the unconscious speaks in emotion first. Logic comes second, if at all. And that's the moment everything starts to shift. When instead of asking, what does this dream mean, you start asking, what is this dream asking of me? That question changes everything, because it turns the dream from a puzzle into a mirror that doesn't show the version of yourself you present to the world, but the version that exists beneath the surface, the version that holds the grief you never processed, the anger you never expressed, the desires you were taught to be ashamed of, the potential you abandoned to fit into the roles others expected of you. When a recurring dream appears, it's not just about interpreting the images, it's about relationship. Your unconscious is not a machine, it's a living system, a part of you that's been observing, feeling, recording everything your conscious mind refused to deal with. And when it starts sending you the same message, repeatedly, it's not just because something is wrong, it's because something is ready to be healed. The question is, are you ready to stop running? Are you ready to stop pretending you don't see it? Are you ready to stop ignoring the part of you that's been screaming, not with words, but with images, with symbols, with dreams that won't let go? Because if you are, everything changes. The dream stops being a nightmare, it stops being a haunting, it becomes a guide, a map, a doorway back to yourself. There's one kind of dream that no one forgets. The nightmare. The one that wakes you in a cold sweat. The one that makes your heart race. The one that leaves you sitting in the dark, wondering what's wrong with you. Wondering why your own mind would torture you like this. But here's the brutal truth. The nightmare isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to save you. Carl Jung was clear about this. Nightmares are not malfunctions. They are not psychological errors. They are the unconscious turning up the volume because you've ignored the message for too long. The nightmare is the psyche's way of saying, you will look at this. You can't keep running anymore. Maybe it shows up as falling, as being chased, as drowning, as monsters, shadows, disasters. But the symbols are not the enemy, they are the messengers. And the scarier the dream, the more important the message. When the unconscious sends a nightmare, it's often because there's something in your shadow, something unresolved, denied, repressed, that has grown so big it can no longer stay hidden. The dream erupts, violently if necessary, to force your conscious mind to pay attention. You may think you've buried the grief, the guilt, the anger, the betrayal, the regret, but your unconscious never forgets. This is why nightmares often revolve around themes of powerlessness, being trapped, being hunted, being exposed, because psychologically these are mirrors, reflecting back the places in your waking life where you've given your power away, where you've abandoned parts of yourself, where you've pretended not to see what is painfully obvious to your soul. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop fearing the nightmare and start listening to it, it transforms. What once felt like terror becomes insight. What felt like a curse becomes a key. And if understanding your dreams feels overwhelming, you are not alone. This is exactly why I created a simple, step-by-step ebook, a daily tool to help decode the language of your unconscious, to help you reconnect to the messages your mind has been sending all along. If you feel ready for that, the link is in the comments. Because the truth is, ignoring the nightmare doesn't make it go away. It only makes it stronger. But when you face it, when you step into the story instead of running from it, something shifts. You realize that the monster wasn't the problem. The problem was pretending the monster didn't exist. Because most of the time, the monster is simply a part of you, a part that's been banished for so long. It no longer knows how to speak in anything other than screams. And the moment you turn to face it, the moment you whisper, "I see you, I hear you, I'm listening," that's the moment the nightmare becomes a guide that leads you, not into more fear, but into the very place where your healing begins. There's one kind of dream that almost everyone remembers. The kind that leaves you disturbed, haunted, even afraid to fall asleep again. It's the dream where someone appears, or something, that feels different. A figure, a presence, watching you, chasing you, speaking to you, or sometimes simply existing in the background. Maybe it's a stranger whose face you can't quite remember. Maybe it's a dark figure standing at the edge of the room. Maybe it's an animal, a monster, a distorted version of someone you know, or even yourself. It feels eerie because, deep down, you know, this isn't just a character. This is something else, something bigger, something deeper. Carl Jung called this the shadow. The shadow isn't evil. It isn't the villain of your mind. It's every part of yourself that you've disowned. Every impulse you were told was wrong. Every feeling you were taught to suppress. Every desire, anger, jealousy, shame, guilt, fear. Every single piece of your humanity that you had to push down just to survive in the world. And when the conscious mind refuses to look at those parts, they don't disappear, they sink into the unconscious, into the darkness, and that's exactly where they wait until you fall asleep. And the conscious mind lets go, and the gates open. That's when the shadow walks in, not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to confront you with one brutal, unavoidable truth. You cannot be whole if you keep abandoning parts of yourself. Maybe it shows up as the attacker, the stranger, the thing chasing you. But here's the most uncomfortable realization. It's not them. It's you. It's the part of you that's tired of being ignored, tired of being suppressed, tired of watching you pretend you don't feel what you feel, don't want what you want, don't fear what you fear. This is the most terrifying thing about shadow figures in dreams, because they look like someone else. But when you pay attention, when you stop running and actually face them, something clicks. You realize, that's not the enemy, that's me, not the me you show to the world, not the polite, well-adjusted, socially acceptable self, but the raw self, the honest self, the self that knows your pain, your rage, your unmet needs, the self that remembers everything you tried to forget, and the longer you avoid it, the more aggressive it becomes. It starts small. Maybe it's a stranger watching you from a distance. Then it escalates. You're being chased, cornered, threatened, and if you still ignore it, the shadow finds other ways. Anxiety, depression, self-sabotage, patterns that repeat in your waking life, relationships that collapse, habits you can't break, fears that grow louder. Because the truth is, the shadow doesn't just live in your dreams. It lives in your life, in every fight you avoid, in every boundary you refuse to set, in every moment you betray yourself just to be liked, just to be accepted, just to feel safe. And when the dream brings you face to face with the shadow, it's not an attack. It's an invitation to stop running, to stop pretending, to stop hiding from yourself. The most terrifying shadow figure isn't the monster in your dream. It's the reflection of who you had to become just to survive, and everything you abandoned along the way. That's why these dreams are so emotionally charged. Because deep down, some part of you knows the truth, knows that this isn't just about a dream. It's about the patterns that have shaped your entire life. The suppressed anger that turns into chronic people-pleasing, the hidden fear that morphs into perfectionism, the unspoken grief that becomes numbness, disconnection, loneliness. Your dreams don't lie. Your unconscious doesn't lie. It shows you exactly where you're stuck, exactly what you've been avoiding, exactly what part of your soul is screaming to be reclaimed. The moment you stop seeing the shadow as the enemy and start seeing it as the lost part of you, that's the moment everything begins to change. The monster isn't here to destroy you. It's here to show you who you could become if you stopped pretending you were never broken. And here's the wild thing. Jung discovered, when people start facing their shadow, in dreams or in waking life, the shadow starts to shift. It stops attacking, it stops chasing, it starts transforming. Sometimes the monster becomes a guide, sometimes the attacker becomes a teacher, sometimes the darkness turns into light, not because it disappears, but because it was never evil. It was simply misunderstood. The parts of you that you rejected are often the same parts that hold your greatest power, your courage, your creativity, your boundaries, your truth. The shadow holds the keys to the life you've been searching for, but it will never hand them to you willingly. You have to earn it by facing it, by listening to it, by integrating it. And if you're wondering how to even begin that process, how to make sense of the chaos your mind throws at you every night, that's exactly why I created a simple daily ebook. A step-by-step guide to help you translate the language of your unconscious into clarity, healing, and transformation. You'll find the link waiting in the comments whenever you're ready to stop running, because the shadow isn't leaving. It will wait in your dreams, in your patterns, in the background of every decision you make, until one day you turn around, look it in the eye, and realize it was you all along. There are certain dream patterns that are so universal. It doesn't matter where you were born, what language you speak, or how different your life has been. You've had them, everyone has. Dreams where you're flying, dreams where you're falling, dreams where you're being chased. And while these seem like generic common experiences, Carl Jung believed they were anything but random. In fact, these are some of the clearest, most powerful messages the unconscious sends, because they're not personal, they're archetypal. They tap into the deepest layers of the collective unconscious, the universal library of symbols, instincts, and patterns that every human shares, whether they realize it or not. Flying, falling, being chased. Each of these is not just a dream. It's a mirror of something fundamental about how your psyche is experiencing your life right now. Let's start with flying. If you've ever had a dream where you're soaring above the ground, weightless, free, defying gravity, you know the feeling. It's exhilarating, liberating, almost divine. And it's not just a random fantasy. In Jungian psychology, flying often represents the psyche's desire to transcend limitation, to escape the heaviness of everyday life, to rise above what feels restricting, suffocating, or overwhelming. Flying is the unconscious way of expressing the longing for freedom, whether emotional, spiritual, psychological, or even relational. When you feel trapped in your waking life, when responsibilities, expectations, or inner conflicts weigh you down, your psyche compensates. It says, if you can't rise above it out there, you'll rise above it in here, in the dream world. But flying isn't always pure freedom. Sometimes it's unstable. Sometimes you start to fall. Sometimes you can't stay in the air. And when that happens, the message becomes even clearer. There's something you're trying to escape that can't be escaped. It must be confronted. And that leads us directly into one of the most common and most terrifying dreams of all. Falling, that sudden, stomach-dropping sensation. The moment your feet slip, the ground disappears. You plummet, helpless, powerless, out of control, falling. Dreams are never subtle. They don't whisper, they scream. And what they scream is simple. You're not grounded. Something in your life is unstable. A part of your psyche has lost its footing. Maybe it's a relationship that feels like it's slipping away. Maybe it's a job, a role, an identity, or a version of yourself that you can no longer hold onto. Maybe it's the terrifying realization that something you believed was solid isn't. Falling dreams are the unconscious, brutal way of showing you that the illusion of control is cracking, that something needs to change, and that pretending to have it all together, pretending that everything is fine, is no longer working. But the dream doesn't send this message to punish you. It sends it because ignoring instability doesn't make it go away. It makes it worse. And the psyche, in its infinite intelligence, would rather scare you awake than let you sleep. Through the collapse of something essential, then there's the chase, the classic nightmare, the one that wakes you in a panic. Someone's following you, or something, you don't know who. Or maybe you do, but you can't bear to look. All you know is this: if it catches me, something terrible will happen. But here's the cruel truth the unconscious always knows, and the conscious mind refuses to accept. It's not chasing you to harm you. It's chasing you because you've been running from it for too long. Being chased in a dream almost always represents an aspect of yourself that you've disowned. A truth, a memory, a feeling, a part of your shadow that you refuse to face. And, just like in life, the longer you run, the stronger it gets, the faster it moves, the closer it feels. It's not until you stop, turn around, look it in the eye, that you realize it was never here to hurt me, it was here to be reclaimed. Maybe it's the grief you never processed. Maybe it's the anger you were taught was unacceptable. Maybe it's the truth about your own needs, your own boundaries, your own worth, that you've been running from because it felt too painful, too overwhelming, or too disruptive to face. The dream keeps repeating. The chase keeps happening because your unconscious will never stop sending the message. It's relentless. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because ignoring the part of yourself that's trying to catch you is the real danger, and the moment you turn around, the entire dynamic shifts. What once felt like terror becomes relief. What felt like a threat becomes a guide, and the energy that was once trapped in fear becomes fuel for transformation. Flying, falling, being chased, they're not just dreams, they're blueprints, maps of your psyche. They show you where you're free, where you're unstable, and where you're still running. The dream doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your truth, and the moment you listen, the moment you stop dismissing these nighttime messages as just dreams, you realize something that changes everything. The unconscious doesn't whisper because it's weak. It whispers because it's patient, and if the whisper doesn't work, it will scream. The question is never, why does my dream keep doing this to me? The real question is, why am I still refusing to listen? Because once you listen, once you decode the message, once you stop running, the dream stops being a nightmare. It becomes a mirror, a teacher, a doorway back to the parts of yourself you were never meant to lose. So, now you understand. The dreams you've spent years ignoring were never just dreams. They were never meaningless. They were never random. They were letters, written by your unconscious, delivered every single night. Letters you never opened, messages you never read. Warnings, invitations, maps, a map back to yourself. Because the truth is, your mind has always been speaking to you. It speaks when you're awake, in patterns, in triggers, in the mistakes that repeat. And it speaks when you're asleep, in symbols, in metaphors, in stories that refuse to be forgotten. Every time you fell in a dream, it wasn't about failure. It was a cry from the parts of you that no longer felt safe. The parts that were collapsing under the weight of what you refused to face. Every time you were chased, it wasn't because you were being hunted. It was because you were the one doing the hunting the truth about yourself. A truth you've been running from since the moment the world told you you had to hide it. And every time you flew, it was a glimpse of who you could become, of the freedom that's waiting for you on the other side of your own fear. The monster in your dream was never your enemy. It was the reflection of the self you abandoned, the self you silenced to survive. And here's the most brutal truth of order: the longer you ignore it, the louder it becomes, not just in your dreams, but in your life, in the anxiety that won't go away, in the loneliness you can't explain, in the relationships that collapse for reasons you pretend not to understand, in the feeling that no matter how much you achieve, how much you give, how much you try, something is still missing. That missing piece has been screaming to you every night, in every dream, and now you finally know how to listen. You finally understand that this was never about dream interpretation. It was never about superstition. It was about learning the language of the soul, because the unconscious doesn't speak with words. It speaks with symbols, with patterns, with stories that play on the movie screen of your mind, night after night, and until you wake up, not from sleep, but from the illusion of who you thought you were supposed to be. And the moment you stop running, the moment you stop dismissing, the moment you look your shadow in the eye, that's the moment the dream changes. The monster steps aside, the nightmare dissolves, and what was once terrifying becomes the doorway back to your own freedom. Carl Jung said it best: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So now the question is simple. Are you ready to stop calling it fate? Are you ready to stop pretending your life is random? Are you ready to stop ignoring the voice that has been whispering to you since the moment you closed your eyes and dreamed? Because your unconscious isn't going anywhere. It will wait. It has always waited. The only question is, how long will you keep ignoring what you were always meant to become?